talk about the catch. Not as many people talk about the finish. I always ask the question, is the finish as important as the catch? I think it's just as important. Because we're in a stronger mechanical position up here, we want to make sure we get the most out of that. So maybe technically it's important, but more important. But I think both equally. But biggest thing is, when the blade's in the water, that's time that we can give propulsion to the boat. Once we've released and finished, there's no more propulsion going to the boat. No more of my energy is getting this thing moving forward. Friction's happening with the water and the boat's slowing down. And the more the boat slows down, the deeper it sits in the water, and the more water touches boat, which means it's slowing down even faster now because there's even more friction to it. So the time in the water is time that we're giving the boat propulsion. So yes, we want time in the water, and our time in the water essentially is relative to our boat speed, because our length of stroke is going to be the length of stroke, what it is every stroke anyway. And if we're moving faster, that's just going to happen faster. But we want to make sure that we get that length in the water and that we're moving the boat as far a distance as we can every stroke. Me being direct in the front and not lollygagging up in the air or reaching up here, me being direct into the water, but also not just that I've placed the blade in the water as far forward, it's that I've started to load the blade as far forward. Some people have a habit of setting the blade and then pulling on it, but if my boat's already moving, the split second even time of me placing the blade, that blade, I'm moving past that point already. So I don't want to miss anything, even if it's a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 of an inch or anything up here. The moment I'm placing the blade, almost as I'm placing the blade, I want to start to pressurize it. Of course, I don't want to tear water, but to me, I would rather tear a little bit of water than lollygag, place my blade and wait at all before I pull on it, because I don't want to miss anything in my length. I'd rather tear a little bit of water than not, because that's more on a positive side of our concepts here than the negative side, right? So I want to maximize this and make sure that my blade's getting loaded the moment as it's going in the water. I want that thing pressurized. I got to be on the pressure right away, so I'm not missing any length in my stroke. So we're not going to set then pull. I'm going to go, right? I'm going to be on it right away, okay? And making sure I'm not overreaching up here, because I'm not reaching to grab air, I'm reaching to grab water. So I want to go right to where my stroke's going to be, into the water, direct. We're trying to maximize our length up here, especially because we're strongest mechanically up front, because my arms reach here. This pull action up here is much stronger than when I get back here, this action, me moving this way. And also I've already rotated my body, so I got my positive rotation up here. So that's much stronger, and then everything essentially gets weaker and weaker back here. And all I want to do in the back is hold the pressure. So whatever I find up here, I got to hold that pressure bubble on the blade all the way through, and we follow through with our stroke. Just as we follow through in throwing a baseball, swinging a baseball bat, in golfing, in breaking through karate blocks. We don't want to hit it and come away from it. We got to punch through it to break it. So in most all motions, we want to follow through. My favorite analogy with that is like skiers going to race down a mountain. You're holding on to posts and you're pulling yourself out of the gate. And if you let go early, you can imagine what happens to that person, and the person next to them comes out of the gate and they follow through. Which one's better off through? So here in my stroke, I want to make sure during my stroke, I'm not going to cut out early and take my blade out early, whether it's this way, right? Or this way or whatever. I don't want to have my pressure on it and then all of a sudden just stop and take it off. I want to follow through, right? So I would rather exaggerate a follow through and throw some water behind than take my blade out and cut my stroke early. And paddle steering, whether you're in an OC1 or a V1, especially a V1, that's your steering. Here I have a rudder, and I can simply just use my paddles to steer, but understanding how it works and how to, even if you are in an OC1, help paddle steer, whether you have an object really close to you and you need to get away from it, we're going to use our tool to do so. So a couple of different techniques in paddle steering. One would be one that we don't really use, but sometimes you do. If I need to move my entire boat sideways, basically I'm just going to do a draw stroke and pull my whole boat sideways. Now I go really slow because I'm moving 20 feet of boat sideways into the water, but I move further away from you. So if I want to get closer to you, even if I have some forward boat speed, I'm going to pull my boat literally sideways, like this. So, all right, easy one. You're just drawing the whole boat sideways. So, paddle angles, when we're paddling, if I have any sort of a horizontal angle on my paddle while I'm paddling, some of my forces are pushing me sideways. Now, it's like forward and sideways, so because someone's moving my boat forward, so my boat's kind of like wanting to move that way. So if I'm already initiated in a turn, then I can use this to help take some pressure off of my rudder in my turn, in which case your boat moves more free and you have less resistance coming from a rudder. So what you do with your paddle needs to correlate with what you think that just to relieve the pressure off of the rudder to help aid the turn. And we can do that with paddling with a more sideways paddle angle, whichever side it is I am, it'll turn my boat. Kind of third and like more important way of paddle steering would be to expand my location of my catch. So if I end up catching instead of straight in front of me and straight back and everything's driving me forwards, I'm gonna grab out here and pull it towards me. And if I do something like this, the same kind of thing, I'm moving my boat forward, but I'm also pulling the tail to the paddle. So essentially I would turn to the left by doing so, but I'm keeping still some forward momentum, right? I'm keeping my forces getting this thing going forwards. So this is another way to help paddle steer. And maybe partially with doing this, I almost kind of do that little draw stroke, and I'm kind of a little bit moving the boat sideways as well. But I am helping and aiding the turn. And once in a V1, once that boat starts to turn, it's gonna keep turning. So, because you have no rudder to help keep it straight. You're stopped and you're still, this big horizontal stroke like that has a big effect on turning. If you're going really fast, it's not gonna have as much effect, in which case I use more of these kind of steering techniques to turn. Sometimes you might see people put their foot in the water. You're just adding a pivot point here, basically your whole boat's gonna turn around that butt, you slow down. So you have to know, obviously once you had slowed down, then you can take like a wide sweeping stroke to help turn. So knowing that. Now in an OC1, yeah, left goes left, right goes right. But if I'm not moving, there's no water flow on either side of that rudder, and that rudder's not doing anything because there's no pressure on it. How it works, because this helps with balance as well, because we use our rudder to help balance also. So the rudder, once I turn it, right? If I hit my right pedal, the rudder turns like this, and there's more water pressure pushing on this side of the rudder, which pushes the back of the boat that way, resulting in me turning right. The effect that me turning the rudder and it giving pressure on this, it moves the back of the boat that way, which results in me turning right, but also the effect it has is a torque on the boat. So you have the hull of the boat, because there's pressure on this side of the rudder, it's torquing the whole boat that way. So when I turn right, it's gonna lighten my ama because it's torquing the boat like that. And so if I do need to pop it, sometimes I can simply do a little light touch on my right pedal if I'm surfing or however, if I'm moving, and that ama will become light. It's easier for you to then balance it rather, especially if a wave's kind of shifting and pushing your weight around. Now, of course, pushing left, right, turning left pedal, it will depress that ama. So you have to know and anticipate that to keep balanced, right? So you're not gonna just totally slow yourself down, right? Now, of course, in any turn, when you're adding pressure to something, there's more drag happening, which is more resistance, which is slowing us down. So you have to know, basically, we don't want to spend a lot of time going slow. So if I'm in a race or doing anything and I go around a turn, you're going to slow yourself down. And the more water you hear the back of your boat pushing, the slower you're going to go. So we don't really want too much sound back there, dragging and pushing against water. Because you're going to slow down, and if you hear that, that's like I gotta go get my boat speed back up as soon as I can so I can maintain a higher boat speed overall, right?